One. Richard, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, you have a very special vision now, and you've been gifted, and you're in a special position. So, for the next 15 or 20 minutes, just give us this vision of what you'd like to do for your fellow human community and for the planet.
I want to save as many people as I possibly can from what the heck these idiots are doing.
Yeah,
That's basically
and speak as loudly as you can.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want to save as many people as I possibly can. I don't think it's possible to save everybody, but the thing is, we have to try. I don't want to see anybody go to FEMA. I don't like seeing people get killed or hurt or anything of that nature. All right. I know they want the planet. I know they want to turn it into a Titan type of world with methane and the rest of it. That's what they want. One of the people I know, one of them that's related to the stewards, actually, according to them, got fitted with a device of some sort that they can somehow convert methane to oxygen until they can get her into another body. And she's somewhat highly priced, which is kind of crazy, but it's actually real, apparently. And I've had other people tell me it's, yeah, which I'm not happy about, but I don't have control of them. So if I can get the word out, if we can do something to stop the change of the axis, I believe it'll revert. I believe it's possible to put back up the firmament, which gets rid of a number of other problems, okay, as to what I was talking about, because we are going to be bombarded with gamma rays. Actually, there's a group out there that measures these things. I can't think of this, space something or other. Anyways, and it's been going up and up and up and up all the time. There have actually been experiments that this can actually affect people biologically, where they revert to prior states regarding baby. And it, okay, they did something with a salmon and the thing got a hook at the end of its nose and became a prehistoric something. And they did the same thing with wheat, and the wheat reverted to a prior version of itself. So this stuff is actually real. It's crazy, but it's real. And I could give you more examples, but whatever. All of this stuff can be taken care of, but you have to have teams. No one person can do it all themselves, and you have to have resources to do it. That's why we have to bring the country back online as quickly as possible. So that, and you have to, keep from using things that won't work. We can only have things that work because there's not enough resources, and after this is even worse. The teams have to be localized to specific locations. They need to be as far away from the water as possible because they know in the history of TV as to what's been put forward to the people, because people forget, that there's a high probability in these situations that the table, which is like a pedestal table in Hawaii, will fall over sideways under with Pele going off under certain conditions like what we have here. They know that there's a tsunami over at Montserrat could happen very easily. It's expected. They could actually do things to stop it, or at least hold it back for a time, but they don't do that, okay? And what happens is water gets down in the cracks into the magma or whatever, down deep enough, and you got a problem. And sooner or later it'll go, fall sideways as to like an underwater earthquake, and because it's liquid, it gets transmitted right across the ocean bed and the rest of it. It's over. And they know this can take it off the East Coast, is to at least parts of it. And part of the response to this has been that they don't let people build in certain areas. Cape Cod is part of it, and they know the storms are going to increase because like I said in the last presentation before this, every 1.5 degree rise is a 10x rise in the storm activity and strength energy, if you will. So the solution is we have to address these things. And the people who are in charge, one of the things I've found in dealing with lawyers expect that people, they can afford to pay people to get an answer for something. And the problem is you get the answer you pay for. Kind of like the guy that did the thing with the dogs with the sugar, saying that sugar was okay for dogs and they could live on it, and all the dogs died, of course. It didn't work. But you can get somebody to say almost anything, and that's the way our world works. So what I'm saying to you is we need a group of people in different genres, okay, that can put these things together. I can do this stuff, and I got a history of doing it, but no one person can do it all themselves. I need to be able to build a device that can instantaneously drill a hole, which can be done with gamma and other things. It can be done with, NASA came up with a thing for digging holes to make buildings on the moon, etc., where they can do it pretty quick, even through rock with carbide, using carbide bits. And we need to be able to house a lot of people very fast. And what I do is I try to design for what I call popcorn. Okay, using standardized sizing so that you don't have to cut. In other words, time and materials all minimized, which is actually humorous when they talk about social distancing in manufacturing, because that's the exact opposite of, time and materials and time studies as to manufacturing. You see the humor of it. It doesn't work. So if we can we have to be able to build buildings and an infrastructure in months, which I believe it can be done under certain circumstances. One of the things I did is I looked at the way the Ho Chi Minh Trail was built and why they were able to do it as quickly as they did. They looked for divots in the ground, is what they did. And then they built into the divots and then covered it over. Using these technologies, we can do something, we can save more people than we would otherwise. We have to look at everything, because life is too precious not to. And we have to be able to let everything become, because everything has a right to do that. That's why you were created, all of us. If what I said about the pyramids, that can take care of a number of problems. The asteroids, the coronal mass ejections. These things are real. Like I said yesterday about the sun with the CME that got averted by bringing in off-world help. We need to be able to handle these things ourselves. That's why the other side, the Arabs, when they first came in here, Muslims, whatever you want to call them, worshippers of Baal, Sin, whatever, that group, they went after the pyramid because the pyramid was the shield to the planet with the water, and it didn't have to have any electromagnetics besides the water. In other words, it was a naturalistic way of doing it. And if you look at it, basically what they did is they built an ocean in the sky. That's what it was. But nobody could figure out how they could do it. Like I said, Schomburger figured it out, but nobody understood why they would do it. And I figured it out looking at what nobody could figure out. So I need teams to be able to refurbish that thing. Can't think of his name. There's a geopolymer guy who actually looked at it, and he found out there was poured. So the situation isn't hopeless. The situation is the people need to be told what's going on and what is necessary. And we need everybody working. We don't need people not working. We have to have an infrastructure to deal with this. But when you look at, if you're going to be clouding over the sun with the chemtrails, and you don't want to have solar for the simple reason you're not going to have anything coming through as long as they continue with chemtrails. And one of the things I was going to tell you, there is a way to deal with the chemtrails. I want to tell 3 stories because I want to empower people as well, although it's kind of dangerous. They're very short stories. The first one is, during Auschwitz, there was a flight of planes. There's a book, a friend of mine knew of it too. And the planes were Luftwaffe, and they went overhead. And the people in the camp started yelling, they want the planes to hit the ground, and they did. And they killed everybody that witnessed it, and it was in a book. Then when Captain Bly was put in a boat on off of Pitcairn Island, and he had to make his way back to the nearest port, they only had 1 cask of water. So he told the crew at one point, imagine that everything about so many feet away from the boat was all fresh water. And it worked, and they all lived, except for the ones that had already passed by drinking salt water. And the third one was Coast to Coast. Art Bell once did a show, and what he said was, there was somebody called in, there was some town that didn't have water to raise their crops for an extended period of time. I think it was something like 10, 12 years, something like that. And what happened was, he asked the people who were listening to think of the town and think of it raining over the town. Well, it worked, except there was a problem with the volume control. They got rain. They got more rain than they could handle. But it did rain. So they did this a number of times, and every time it worked. So the power of the human soul, in terms of what we're talking about, is amazing. And the power to handle the chemtrails and the jets that are flying out of wherever they fly out of by using such a technique, we may be able to get that out of our atmosphere without even asking from anybody off-world to do anything for us. So I'm asking for a group to help focus on those kind of things, to obviate them, and also same thing with asteroids until we can get other things in place. But I want teams of people to do this because I believe in humanity. And the reason why I believe in humanity, I read an article, and I wrote an article based on this article recently. There was a study done on babies. They were about 2 to 3 years old. And they wanted to know if they were altruistic. The question has always been, is it man or is it the society? Is man basically good or is man basically bad? So an adult made like he was hungry in front of the baby, the 2 to 3 year old. And the answer was that the baby offered the adult its food even though it was hungry, which proved that the child by itself was actually altruistic. So it isn't man that is the problem, it's the society that's engendered by these creatures that have done what they've done to man. Man is good. So let us be good. And let the light outshine the dark. I need your help to make that dream more of a reality for the children and all the rest of us. And that's what I want. And that's why I do what I do. So please help me help you. I think I said what I had to say. I hope I made sense.
Well, those are really heartfelt and clear words, and we will put those with your website, Richard, and with your email address and with your phone number so that people who are drawn to your message
Do you
can,
understand? I'm sorry.
can, yes, yes, clearly understood. You are transmitting very strong messages and pictures and visions. And I
That's
want to thank you for joining us today. And
Albert,
we look forward to your joining us in the future. So
I'm
thank you.
sorry. Thank you, Albert. You understand why I need to have the people, I have to try to get them out of harm's way.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you very much then.
Thank you, Albert. You're seeing today, and you've been seeing it since World War II. In the 90s, it really hit home. In the 80s before, they were clobbering us. As a matter of fact, in the semiconductor industry at the time, they said it was pretty much over. There were certain groups that were put together by the government to try to hold the stay of their ability to supply for the machinery of war and everything else. They couldn't do it. IBM was one of these foundries that they put together. There were a number of them, all right? In the end, they've lost as to being able to keep. So what it is they first would be like, they'd have a couple of years of production from overseas, and the number kept going up and up and up and up to the point it's absurd. You were no longer in control of your industry. And the comparative that I would use is when the settlers in the United States came in, what became the United States rather, and they brought the gun, and the Indian gave up his bow. From that point on, guess who was in trouble? The Indian. Because for all his arms and the rest of it, he had to look overseas to get what he needed. He never learned the metallurgy and the rest of it, and all his skills fell out of favor, so he was no longer able to arm himself adequately. It's pretty much what happened. So this is like a historical thing. Now, with the Peace Buddha, what they ended up doing when the Tibetans, Mongolians, and everybody else around them lost their ability to mine and make the metal necessary, they went around and they collected all the metal. And what they did, because there weren't going to be, the necessity of war wasn't going to exist anymore in theory, is what they told everybody. Guess what? They melted them all down and they made peace Buddhas all over the place, which you can find them today. And this is a story that is actually told, or used to be told, throughout the Orient. You don't hear it anymore. All right. But you're actually in the same situation, and they've actually done the same thing to us again. And actually, the first book I wrote, I actually talked about this. I don't believe it's in this book. Anyways, so it turns out the other nations around them fell. What a surprise. They could no longer arm themselves. All right. So what happened was, you're going to love this one. They ended up coming up with a solution to this. And they were enslaved to these people. And by the way, once they got power, they were not nice. They'd go around with their soldiers, beat the heck out of everybody, kill them, do whatever the heck they wanted to do. It took them 1,000 years to get out of it. All right. And they finally did. And the solution was, hold on to your shorts for this one, the martial arts. And what they did for any kind of armament they could possibly have was, there was only one thing left to deal with. And that was farm implements, which at that point became modified or whatever the heck they could do with them. And that became their battle equipment as to being able to deal with the Chinese, which had the armor. So they had to be better. And that's why you have, Shaolin, all of it. That was the solution. Okay. And we carry that forward today, but most people don't understand what the basis of the whole thing is. Isn't that interesting? Just a tad. So this is what you're dealing with. This is a standard protocol. This is Sun Tzu. This is all of it. This is the way they operate. They've done it. This has happened before. This is not new, and it works. And the average person and the average politician in dealing with this, forget it. And the other piece of it is they bribe people. But the one thing that you can be assured of when they finally take power, the people that put them there in the first place, guess what happens to them? They can't trust them, they kill them. Happens every time. In all the races that they had in the areas that they took over, they do something for them too. They kill them. They're as racist as could possibly be when it comes to this. And it works. So they keep expanding. So you can't, argue with success, but the problem is being on the wrong end of it is not a joy, because they make it unbelievable. Okay, does that kind of answer where this starts? Now, we're facing it because basically they wiped out our industry. If you watch what's happening in the United States, Europe, I hear the same story in Australia, etc. This is not just one place, it is worldwide, but it's mostly in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's directed, a lot of it is directed at the whites. I hate to say it, but it's true, but that's because they're the original people on the planet. They want the planet. And that's what it's about. Anyways, regarding the United States, okay, they've taken over our engineering. It's been going on, like I told you the other day, about 1992, the head of the IEEE, International Electronic, what do you call it? I can't think of it. The engineering. Anyways, they said the average time, the head of it said at one point, said the average time for the life of a student graduating from college at that time was 6 months as to what they could expect. All right. And we've allowed this to happen. We bring them into, we educate them in their schools, and I'm sorry, in our schools. They go back. Look, you cannot keep hegemony over a market if you keep giving away the goodies. If you bring your competitors into your operation, all right, and you show them everything you do, you can be sure they're going to come back at you in the marketplace. This happened in the 80s and 90s. I watched it. I was working for a company by the name of Brown, which is now defunct. The owners got an offer. Phillips wanted to look at them, okay? Which Phillips, he was a small outfit. We were making something, basically, they call it a mainframe. You'd call it a block for a motor. I was involved in this. I ran the cost control program in the computer. I was the IT guy, okay? And that was my job in a job shop. And what we made was something you would call the block for the motor of something called the F-15, okay? And we made the turbine blades. And that's part of my, my experience. I wasn't the engineer and all of that. My degree isn't in engineering, it's in business administration. Anyways, Phillips decided to come in, and they allowed him in. I told them, don't do it. They did. And about 6 months to 9 months later, I think it was, it's been a long time now, Phillips entered our marketplace. They had more money, of course, and basically they gave them a miserable time. And they saw the way we built everything. They took notes. They brought in a team. And guess what happens next? So nobody listened to me at the time because the president of the company, well, he did some other crazy stuff, including he was, bribing some of the people over at GE with video cassette, not cassette, what do you call it? VCRs. This is way back. And he got himself in with the FBI and the rest of it, and it was a mess. So he was put off the books for a year or two while they were investigating and the rest of it. He couldn't do anything. He held it together. He ended up selling the company for $1. I tried to buy it out. I raised about 6 to 10. Actually, I raised 10 million. I offered him 6. He didn't want it. And then they told him either give it to me or otherwise you're going to have a problem. They're going to put you out of business. And like I said, he sold it for $1. It was supposed to be his thing. And what I was trying to do was with that at that time, they were into electromagnetics in terms of metals at some points and some of the things they did, which I was into because that's the basis of UFOs and other strange things. Okay, I was aware of that, and that's why I talked to Pat Bailey at the time, and he took my work, and he had a guy, what do you call it? He asked me to send it to him, and basically they took some things they shouldn't have taken. I was stupid to give it to him. I thought I was doing something good for the country, and he gave it to George Hathaway.
Right, but how does, you know,
I'm
as
sorry, it doesn't relate. I should shut
yeah,
up on
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, but wait,
But
how does this, it seems to me that what Trump is doing verbally, he's saying he's bringing factories back to the US, he's bringing steel factories back to the US, he's repatriating industries. How is it that it seems to me that Trump at least is verbally
okay, then why
doing,
is everything going back to India? Why is he taking it from China and sending it to India?
is that what's occurring?
That's what I'm hearing. Okay, look, everybody goes yay, 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 right? And they take the lip service. But the reality of it is, okay, every we live in a world that everything gets made for the lowest dollar. All right, he used to talk about tariffs. You don't hear him talking about that. He was going to negotiate with the Chinese to get better pricing in terms of whatever it is, right? All right, years ago, under the Bush administration, they told you the US economy is no longer based on our own production. It's based on imports. And the cost control is based on inputs as well, if you look at the manufacturing. I was a manufacturing guy. Look around at all of the companies in all of the different counties throughout the United States and see where your manufacturing is. It's not there. And the price
Now,
of steel, everything's economically based. Look, the reason you had tariffs was because you were protecting the workers. And guess what? Mom stayed at home. And guess what? Dad went to work. You
now,
can't do that anymore.
right. Now, when
Wait, I
when
want to say something too, if I
yeah,
may. Okay, because now they're talking about you as an individual getting paid to do nothing, sitting there. Look, somebody has to pay for that. You have to produce something. The problem is, it's like I was talking to somebody the other day. He was telling me, well, you're going to have a problem getting refrigerators. Why? Because you don't have the parts to repair them or make them. Okay, look at your major manufacturers of all that stuff. It's overseas. Okay, where's the thing that says that, okay, we're going to put a tariff on something, right? And we're going to bring it into the United States to protect it. So the thing of it is, it doesn't go back overseas. The only one that ever had a possibility, period, of bringing it back to the United States is what I did with the 11 to 17T. And I'm going to tell you something right now. The idiots in Washington never came up with anything like that number. Any one of them, period. Never. They couldn't do
right. Now, let me go back to the origins of our conversation that led to
it.
this program.
Yes.
You said that you've been tracing the underground earthquakes, which the standard answer, at least in the alternative media, has been, oh, the white hats are blowing up the underground bases
You're
in
confusing two
order
things.
to rescue, no, wait, let me finish here. In
Go
order
ahead.
to rescue the children. I've heard from 30,000 to 300,000 children are trapped in the underground bases by the pedocriminal matrix that ranges from the Anunnaki, the Draco reptilians, and the reptilian-souled humans that serve this complex, and that under Q and the white hats that serve Q, they're now all of these earthquakes are happening because the underground bases that were built after 1971, a large part of them under the Richard Nixon regime, are suddenly being blown up by the white hats in order to liberate the children. You came in with an alternative theory and that is that they're preparing an invasion. Do you want to go forward with that theme? Because I think that our listeners are really, they tune in for like leading edge news, and that was pretty leading edge news, and that's why we wanted to get you right on the air.
Okay, here's what I think. You're going after all these underground bases, right? There's a lot of clones down there. There's supposed to be Coliseum type things where these guys like to fight everybody off against each other, etc. Right? And they're going after them all over the place, but most of these are military. They're not all what you're talking about. But the question I have is this. They were supposed to go after the children that are supposed to be under Vegas, they're under New York, and all these other places, right? You have to store them someplace. You have to put them in hospitals. You have to see what the heck happened to them, and you have to know where they are. Where are they? Where are the doctors that are taking care of them? Where are the doctors that are trying to straighten them out psychologically? Where are these kids?
Well, according to people that
I'm not being funny. I mean, all
no,
I'm
no,
saying
no, I
is,
know,
show me the corpus delicti, please.
no, but I'll give you the answer, or
Go
one
ahead.
answer on a Zoom chat that I had.
Yes.
There was a person who was a former military nurse who said that they're supposedly being taken care of in classified facilities by military type personnel. Now,
That's
what's
nice.
the answer?
I don't think it's a good answer for the simple reason, okay, they need to be, I want to see some in the flesh. That's what I'm asking for. I'm serious. I want to see them in the flesh because I'm looking at the amount of damage that's being done to our infrastructure. I'm also looking back to a time where people were looking on the beach and they were seeing the full moons and the rest of it, or what do you call it? You know, not full moons, the other way. Anyways, they're seeing Chinese battle tanks being unloaded in California.
Chinese battle tanks being unloaded in California?
On the beaches. And they had infrastructure that was put in place, yes, and people were reporting it on YouTube and the rest of it. I'm not being funny, and I'm not laughing.
And so you're saying that these Chinese battle tanks are being unloaded, and that they made their way into the underground bases. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. That I do not know, but they have to be someplace. But they were supposed to be being unloaded, and people were reporting it way back when. Look, I'm going to tell you something. The one thing about what's on the net and YouTube and the rest of it, which I don't like at all, because it's very, 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 very fluid, okay, as to what the heck is reported. I saw reports at one point. All right, I'll give you for instance. This is just a little silly thing. All right. Fukushima, right? Obama, through the CIA, told him to leave the fuel rods in, right? Okay. Massachusetts. I come from Massachusetts. There were reports that the reservoirs in some places were 300% over the top in terms of radiation. I know families, or new families rather at this point, every generation, 3 generations, all have, thyroid cancer. Nobody had thyroid cancer in the United States before like we have today. There was a report that was on my disc that actually disappeared. It went poof. I actually watched it disappear or go poof. I've seen stuff like that. I've seen a vast do it, and I've seen other things do it. I'm not joking, and this is not funny. There was a report that was disappeared, right? It said that 10 out of something like 23, 21, something like that, Americans over a period of 10 years would come down with some form of cancer based on Fukushima. Okay, Ventura County was hot, hot, hot. All the stuff with the seals and the rest of it dying and all that stuff, that didn't go away. Sorry, there's no free lunch. When you get that stuff, and nobody went around, they said that they should have gone around and picked up all of the dirt in Ventura County, I believe it was at the time, and that didn't happen to my knowledge. So underneath someplace, yeah, but what I'm saying is the news that you're seeing, it comes and it goes and people forget.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this.
Go
For
ahead.
example, in your book, Demand for Title of Earth and Adjudication, I was
Yes,
just reading on page 119.
I don't
There's this
remember, but okay.
sentence. Okay, just listen to this sentence. China will be held responsible for all earthquakes and volcanism problems and must be broken up. All underground tunnels permanently collapsed. Mongolia and Tibet will most likely revert to separate countries. Now, could you take that? Those are three separate sentences. They they involve very complex thoughts. Could you take those thoughts and really, for some time, really explain what you mean there? I mean, that that's serious stuff there. That what thesis are you advancing there? China will be held responsible for all earthquakes and volcanism problems and must be broken up. All underground tunnels permanently collapse. Mongolia and Tibet will most likely revert to separate countries. Could you please follow these trains of thought directly, but just explain what you mean there and give us the full background? What are these problems? That's on page 119 of your book.
Okay, remember what I told you about the piece, the last piece we did the other day?
Yeah,
Okay, China built the Milky Way 2, which was with the Sisal software, which made for breach of the crust. Okay, which is what it was. Okay, it models the tectonic plates for tectonic plate warfare. Remember that conversation?
sure.
All right. They knew what they were doing when they designed the what do you call it? The dam. They knew that this thing would put out a wave daily. It was the height of the Empire State Building. They knew that it had a multiplication effect of 10,000 to 1 going through the Luzon Straits across the Pacific. 10,000 to 1. Okay, they knew this. It's measured. It's in the documentation that I provided. This is the scientists saying this themselves. All right? They knew all of this. They knew, okay, all the scientists that looked at it said it was bad science. There were court cases with the Canadians and others that made them back out of it. There was so much money that they couldn't help themselves, on the one hand. On the other hand, the Chinese, the Queen, all of them, they all agreed they did it. But they also knew what it would do based on what the software was. They also knew about the tectonic plates because the joining of that, where that thing is, you have the, what is it? The Eurasian plate that goes all the way to Naples, which I said the other day. The other side goes right across the ocean, and that includes through the South China Sea. It hits everybody. I've had people in front of me, they agree, yes, you're right. Well, why don't you do something about it? I have a job. I got a kid. What do you want from me? But you're killing everybody. Yeah, I know. We don't know what to do. We're under contract. I can't open my mouth. This is the stuff that you hear when you actually start dealing with this. Military people will say, yeah, we can't talk. This is the way it is. Everybody's under contract. It's insane. Everything I just said is insane, but this is the way it is. They know. I have a non-disclosure. Welcome to reality. This is the way it is, Albert. This. I can't. We live in a world, militarily, et cetera, where they box everybody. Everything is compartmentalized. The Europeans aren't as bad in their engineering as they are in the United States. It's terrible, but it's the way it is.
Okay, so what you're saying, I'm just trying to get hold of for our audience, for ourselves, and
Okay,
for there being a tangible problem that we're dealing with here? Are you saying that we're on the verge of an invasion of the U.S., a shift of the axis?
you already had the, wait a minute, time out. On
Yeah.
the shift of the axis, you're wrong about one thing. If you read the documentation, you read what I wrote, I'm sorry, guy. The ship sailed. From the time this thing started, it was a matter of months before it's done. It already shifted.
Okay.
You're too late. It's
Okay.
done.
Okay. So the North Pole is
Look, can I tell you something?
described.
Let me get, wait a minute. Okay. If you actually look,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right,
yeah. But then articulate what the shift is. Complete your sentences.
I can't remember exactly what it was without going to the book, but it's something like 0.08 inches, and that's enough.
Okay.
All right. And wait a minute. One of the things about this that's very interesting is, you know, all the red moons and all that good stuff. You never had them before that I know of. All of a sudden, they started happening, and they were interesting for a reason that I found out that was actually kind of fascinating. You won't believe what it is. The reason you're having them is because the blue light from the reflections of the Earth and the moon and the rest of it underneath the moon is no longer there. So what it is these guys, the people that are tied to Saturn, the entities, whatever you want to call them, right? The time that they get the best shot as to being able to do stuff is to pulling energy for what they are. This is what I've been told is underneath the spot. It's kind of like when you have a full moon eclipse, whatever. It's underneath the spot that's underneath the moon because there's no other light coming in from the sun. So there's no reflections of what would come in from the sun. And what it is these guys are from the dark, so they can actually somehow dial back to Saturn because of this. So they love this. This is what part of the reason they did it. It's crazy, but it seems to be true. All right. So that's another piece of it. Let's see, there's another thing to that too. I can't think what it was. But you were saying, please take on, go.
Well, no, I'm
Oh,
trying to.
oh, you wanted to know about the why I feel this way as to what the why they're responsible. If
Well,
you make a if I make a device, okay, if I make a nuclear device and I blow it off, or somebody, I'm not going to do that, but you know, all right, and I know that I did it, and the scientists are in there to do what it is, right? There's a little bit of a responsibility for there. Now, if you have that
right,
kind of
right. So
responsibility, okay, wait a minute. If you
so
have that
what you're
kind of
saying,
responsibility, you have a finite win. That's murder.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
word that, hear me out. That's genocide. That's murder. That is an act of war. And if you look at what the Chinese did in the book, Unrestricted Warfare, they spell it out very clearly in two fronts. They do not sign the agreement for against tectonic warfare with the UN. They refuse to sign it. They also say something else. In dealing with a capitalist state, it is unnecessary for them to declare war to have war. You have an undeclared war, which is totally illegal internationally. That's what this is. This is an undeclared war against the American people and the rest of the world. It's the ultimate power grab for them to take over everything, which is what they want. And if you look at what they're doing in Africa, buying things up and putting the people off the land, etc., they've been doing it for a while. And they're user-friendly like a piranha in your underwear. Hell of an analogy.
Well, they're right. Some people would say that they're displacing the United States as the world superpower. Say.
Yes, and okay, and there's a reason why they're being able to do it is because guess who owns DC. As a matter of fact, if you go back and look at this whole thing, I mentioned it in the book, it goes back to the Mahabharata. And where they originally come in is around the area of Cambodia. And everybody says that isn't true, it didn't happen, because the British are the ones that are tied to this every which way. And they're lying. And there's a very good reason. Matter of fact, I talk about the Dalit. You ever heard of the Dalit? You know what I'm talking about? Pardon?
How do you spell what you're saying? The what?
I believe it's D''H''Alit.
Okay.
When I was a kid in grade school, there was a picture in a book of a guy, he was a Dalit. You may know him by another name, the Untouchables, okay, of India. Okay. Before these entities existed, their social caste system was based on, you had the rulership, you had the priest class, you had the merchant class, and you had basically the peasants. All right. Do you know why a Dalit is a Dalit? They beat the hell out of them. The girls, they're not very nice to. They chop off their legs and their arms. You like it already? They make them into a pillow, basically, with a head. This is not a joke. They don't want people to know what really goes on. But I understand why in some ways. It's sick, but I understand why. The way you originally became a Dalit was you attacked this world in an interstellar war. That's a fact. But the British always say it never happened. But then I found something else. Anytime you have a war, there's always two sides to a story. And there's always two different people or entities, countries, worlds, whatever, that are party to it. And I believe in one guy that always rules supreme in the whole situation. He's the tax man. Because you got to raise money to do these things, among other strange things. The other thing I believe in is there's always residue in the artwork. One day I'm in a restaurant in Randolph, Mass. I look at the wall and I ask this woman, they're from Thailand. And you have these entities fighting with each other in the sky. Some are black, some are white. She says, yeah, that's about the Great War. So I look at it, I go, wow. Then I found similar things with the Assyrian, when you have reptilians in the Assyrian artwork in underarms with humans. I go, that's interesting. Then there was a guy, he was Tamil, and I have this habit of looking up people's names as to where they come from, what the names mean, things of that nature. It's very interesting sometimes. And I looked up his name and I found something that was interesting as well. I found the Jat, J''AAT, I believe it is. It's got a couple of different spellings though. Anyways, when you have a war of that nature, there has to be another side of that war. There has to be people that fought it. Okay? The Jat were the people that fought that war. It turns out, when I was a kid, was about 7 to 10, something like that. My grandfather had an old Motorola. On Saturday mornings, they had a thing about the whole Mahabharata one time. And they were talking about having battles. And the battles, one battle in one day was 8 million men. The only time that that's happened in modern times was when India did something as to ticking off Pakistan, and they sat down and they were going to party for a little bit, but it didn't happen. But in the middle of this show that they had when I was a kid, they talked about how many people died in this war on this planet. 86 billion. But then they were running an economy that was designed to succeed, not what we have today. And one of the ways you can always tell the difference is when you go to wood as opposed to rock, nothing lasts when you decide to end whatever it is you didn't want. That's why the old pyramids and the rest of it work. And the stuff that we have today is junk. But anyways, the Jat. The Jat fought the battle. They have over in India, because India, if you look back, was the original place where all the stuff happened. And the people that made the mess you have now are the ones that came in from Babylon, and they worked their way across. Well, actually, the Indians won, but they couldn't hold on to it. They got reduced too much, and they couldn't send them back as the warriors that they defeated, because they'd be rearmed and they'd be back in their face again, and they'd knocked them down too far. So they went and they became some of the Aboriginal people that you have in Australia, the Polynesians, etc., the mound builders going up the Mississippi, and they ran all over the place. Okay? And they've been kicking the hell out of us as to what you're experiencing right now every 12 to 24,000 years. This is not new. This is a periodic event. And what they do is they like to cull us and our children. And that's why I want to know where the children are, because they like the, what do you call it? I can't think what you call it. The blood serum that keeps them young. You want to know why? You want to know why they like children? You really want to know why? I'll tell you why. The heart of a child is particularly a baby, is what the Mayans used to use. They chop it up in little pieces. They put it together with chia. And the conquistadors couldn't beat them. They could run up and down mountains like crazy. I shouldn't have told you that. Because they kill the kids. Because the ATP, PTP, they can bang off the walls. The conquistadors couldn't deal with it. They could go out for about 15 minutes and they couldn't take it, because these guys could run all day, all night. And if you cut them, they'd be back in business in no time at all. And that's why these clowns want this stuff. I can't think of it. It's not Kodachrome. What the heck is it? I can't think of the name of it. It's something chrome.
Are you talking about adrenochrome?
Yes, it's adrenochrome. That's what this stuff is about. That's why they want them. That's why they're down there. And the other thing that they do is they change them genetically. They change people genetically. That's why you got things like Dulcie. You got the orange people down in Florida. They're actually us. But they make them so that we will not accept them as being human anymore. And the thing of it is, we have to be kinder to the situation. Because of this, we reject them. And because we reject them, people get mad for being rejected. And they act out, they want to eat each other, and they do bad things, okay? And the problem is we have to genetically back engineer them. It's like the original oxen over in Europe took 6 generations to back breed it, however you want to say it. And this is what they do, because they don't like to get their hands dirty, so they can get you to get your hands dirty, right? They're happy. If they can get you to eat each other, then you get the disease cuckoo and you take care of yourselves. So anybody that wants to be in Hollywood, whatever, they always have to eat so many of whatever. I don't even want to go there. It's like, it's just so sick. I don't even want to talk about it. And what I should have told you, I should never have told you. Never! Sorry. Just very upsetting. Look, that's why I want to see the children. I want to see all the children. I don't trust any of them. And you don't want to either. To get to the positions that these men are in there, they're not clean. Or they wouldn't be there. And that means Trump too. That's the way it really is. And if you think I'm wrong, you are playing with fire and you will burn on this one. This is not a joke and this is nothing to play with. They have to bring them forward. People have to see. They have to know, to understand. This is not a game and I do not play games. They have to come forward, period. You don't know unless you see. It's speculative. And I will not accept it. It has to be this way. There's too much that's gone on. Somebody's word in this situation isn't worth spit with these people. You deal with them, there is no honor here. If you think there is, you're in a fool's paradise and you will get hung over it. It's the way it really is. It's like what I told you the other day, my dealing with them. As the 99% of the corporation, 1% can wag the dog. Look, the reason you have freedom at all, what you think is freedom, and you have the Masons, is because that way both the Christians and the Luciferians could sit down at the same table thinking that they were both worshiping the same God, and they were not. So guess who goes up scale and guess who doesn't? The Christian stays at the bottom. This is a surprise. That's what you bargained for with Guatu. And you never even knew the difference. The average schmo has no idea. And they're laughing at you. You need proof of life, or you'll never see it. They're taking care of them all right. They're getting rid of evidence. You think I'm wrong? I'm not. A guy, look, Trump sits and for key buys in the real estate market, he does 666 on different things as to the pricing structure or some other thing. That's how they do it. And they snicker about it. It's very easy to be a fool. It's tougher to hold the line, and you have to hold the line. This thing with wiping out these underground bases, unless you see it, it has to be opened up. The secret societies have to be opened up, and nobody should be allowed to be in a secret society because you have conflicts in judiciary and everything else. Because if you start looking at what they have to swear to, everything up to murder is allowed as to them helping each other over the other person in a court case. And I've seen too many complaints and I've seen too much to know that if you think you're walking into a courtroom and you're going to get equal treatment when the other side is like this, you're out of your cotton picking mind. I've seen all sorts of people cry, but I had the case, I had the case. You weren't a Mason, pal. They hit a hand signal, guess what? You're out to lunch. Too bad. There can't be justice unless there is justice, and it starts at the top, and it's dirty. And all the judges, all the police, all the whatever you want to talk about, it's the same thing. None of it is clean. And if you look at, there's a thing, I don't know if they'll take it down after this, called the open scroll. You know what it is? It's a list of all the different secret societies for the human sacrifice. and when the different ones have to go out and get whatever the goodies that they have to get to bring it back. You think you're walking a lane clean, you're a fool. Alfred, it's not directed at you, but I'm just telling you. Know who you trust. Good luck with that. It's not the way it is. In the underground war, why is it going after? You have a hardened installation that has to take a couple of nuclear devices to take it out. Now, when you take out all those hardened sites, which they don't harden a site like that just because they have kids in there. They don't have to do that for that. The kids aren't going to be running around with little toys that can blow out a nuclear site. Something a little bit more in there. I once talked to a man, and he was tied to the guy that made those, I can't think of his name, the ones that made the deep sites that you're talking about, where you blow a nuclear device and then you go in there and you create a dome in there or whatever the heck you want to do. There's stuff in there. I asked him why they had to be so deep and who was down there. And he told me it was the aliens. And I asked, okay, why that deep? And he said the gamma rays. Okay? And I said, oh, crap. And what I've come to find out over the years, this is called stacking probabilities. All right? What that means is, when you stack probabilities, how many ways can you kill a person? We have an object that's doing about 322,000 miles an hour, which I'm not sure, but I do know one thing, that it's coming in our direction. It's going to round a corner. It's probably going through the Earth cloud or the, what do you call it? The Kuiper belt. It's going to drag a whole bunch of stuff with it. And it's going to start peppering us. And the idea why I think that might be true is the, what do you call it? The international airport in Colorado, Denver. Okay, that thing is designed with what's that material? The bulletproof stuff. The top of it, the tents there. All right, and they also have that picture in there, which I heard that they took it down, whereas the Indians in the Southwest shooting at people, well, the sky is full of all sorts of meteorites coming in. Okay, so they're expecting, and these guys also, the Indians in that area, have all sorts of underground tunnels and the rest of it. So they bottom off with the casinos and the rest of it. So you're not going to get in there. So they're trying to keep everybody out until there's nothing left on the surface. Okay? So you got that coming at you too. And I came up with a solution for this. All right? And yes, I asked for $5 million the other day. Actually, what I want to do is I want to get a piece of land where I can start pulling people in and start building things where we have a chance, because I got to get them away from the sea coast. Because between the mid-Atlantic ridge and the functional equivalent on the West Coast, particularly with Hawaii, which is like a table, like a pedestal table, which that thing's going to sooner or later fall. It's going to take out the West Coast. So, and if that doesn't do it, they also have something else. The submarines that are under, what do you call it, trials right now that the Soviets made, they got a 200 megaton device in them. Each one of them has one of these things with a torpedo that can do something like 70 plus miles an hour, which our guys can't get around correctly. Okay? And they can make a wall of water a mile high, which can wipe out New York, Boston, Roanoke, Groton, Connecticut, LA, San Diego, Spokane. Good times. So if you don't want to help me, don't help yourself, because you're going to die. And the only thing that can save you is distance and height. And that's why the Chinese did the honorable thing They started, I think, somewhere around 3,500 feet when they started building for this stuff. Then they went to 4,000, and last I think it's up around 4,600. And actually, you have to have the distance to go with it. If you look at the book, that what I did is I put a chart in the book is the average heights of all the different continents. And there's a reason why I did that, because of what we're talking about now. So when you're looking at that thing, you're saying, well, why is this important? Why is this going to cost money? Why are the Chinese responsible? When you start playing this game, which they knew, that's called money. And to mitigate against it, that costs money.
Well.
And wait a minute, let me tell you something. When you start looking at this, right? Some of you will know what a standard deviation is, right? So basically say around 62%, I'm sorry, about 60, 68, I think it is, percent will be within the first standard deviation, which is about 32% of the longitude, north and south. And the last is going to be about 5%, about something like that, I think it is, 2.5% on the top. And that's why all these idiots are going up to the Arctic, Antarctic, all this, because they don't know what else to do, because guess what? By the time the wave gets there, they got a chance to survive. And guess what? You didn't get an invite. And that's what this is about. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to give you an invite to get around it. But I need help, or otherwise, guess what? They're not going to take you with them.
Now let me ask you, Richard.
Yeah.
We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left in this 60-minute segment.
Well, okay.
What message? I mean, just.
I need, look, okay, here's what I want. I need a piece of land that's big enough, it's far enough. Okay, I need something in Idaho. The bigger, the better. I need some engineers. I want to get as many people as possible out of harm's way. And I want to make more of these and get as many, as possible out of harm's way.
What do you see as the harm? Is this the axis shift? Is this the external celestial body that is incoming? Just define your terms. Just be succinct. You've only got a few minutes.
We actually, to do everything you're asking in a couple of minutes, that's good. Anyways.
No, just say, it's
okay. Listen to the words that I use. Stacking probabilities. In other words, if I don't catch you one way, I'm going to catch you the other way. If I don't catch you that way, I'm going to catch you the other way. In other words, stacking probabilities means I'm stacking the deck so bad that it's impossible for you to survive unless.
Yeah. So what you're doing is defining the catastrophic timeline. And
no, I'm defining how many kids, each one of them is capable of completely taking out this country.
It sounds like,
except for certain areas.
Yeah, but it's not only the U.S. You're talking about a planet of 7 billion people. Not only the
no, actually, there are areas. Look,
one country out of 190 countries.
Look, anybody that's at around the Earth, what do you call it? The equator is gone, unless you're sky high, and even that isn't going to necessarily help you. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to go north.
Is that because of an incoming celestial body, because of an axis shift, or the combination of all of this?
It's the combination of all of it.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I mean when I say yes, but I need the piece.
Okay,
I need
so
to do.
How can people get in contact?
You out of it.
How can people get in contact with you?
Try my cell phones. One of them, I'll try to get to it every day. But you be succinct, and I need a group of people to help handle it as well. So please reach out.
Okay,
I'll tell you what. I'll give you. I have two numbers.
Yeah.
781-353-8917 is my old number, but I'll use that. If you want to help, call that line. But I cannot spend hours on the phone with you. I have things to do, and I have to try to find a place.
Okay.
Okay. The other number is 781-815-2662. All right. That's for everything else. But the thing is, please, on my knees, be succinct.
Right. We will publish your contact information in the video description of this video and in the article that accompanies this, which will include a link to your free book,
Wait a minute,
downloadable.
wait a minute, can I do one other thing?
Yeah.
I came up with a solution to take care of the, what do you call it? Can we have more time here right now, please? I need this, please.
Okay, sure, sure.
All right, what I did is I figured out what the pyramid in Egypt is.
Okay.
All right, you know Schomburg, or Schomburg, whatever. Okay, he put a patent on it, on the inside of it, back, I think it was 44, it's in the book. And what he said is this thing could throw a stream of water 6 miles high, but nobody could ever understand why you would want to do it. Okay? And everybody talks about the firmament, but nobody knows what it is. This is how the firmament was made. This is how, okay, the underbody, the underlay of Europe is all salt, and that's why. Okay, for miles. Actually, it's actually been estimated something like 18 point something miles deep or something like that. What it is they built up a base and then they turned it off and that became a continent. This is how God really makes things. The reality. Okay. Now, the other piece as to what it does with the firmament, which I figured it out, is if you have a coronal mass ejection and you have this up there, okay, it acts as a ground plane. In other words, it's electrically conductive, particularly if you throw anything into it. And that becomes, it goes out the penumbra, which is the tail. You have the bow shock wave in the front, you got the tail in the back, and that goes out the penumbra, which has, it's like a tail that stands away from the sun. All right. So it discharges, so it doesn't become, it gets rid of the charge, is basically it. Because it's hydrogen, it's automatically going to be charged, et cetera, whatever. Okay. If I'm standing in a pool and somebody takes a shot at me, I got 20 foot of water in front of me. Okay. And I got a meteorite, an asteroid, whatever the heck. Okay, the concept of hydraulic shock as to what happens with an M16, same thing. It disintegrates whatever's inbound. And that becomes more conductive for what I said before. All right? I figured that out. I also figured out how the damn thing works. There's things about it I'm not going to go into. But anyways, there's a couple other things that it does in the book. But if I can take care of the asteroids, I can take care of the, what do you call it? What I said, the incoming solar flares. Oh, yes. Outer space, we went into a new area of a space starting in the 30s, and it accelerated recently. Okay, where it's getting colder anyways. All the burning of the fuel actually helped. Anyways, we're also coming into an area where above the star wall that was between us and the center of the galaxy, where we're getting hit more and more by gamma rays, which is changing the timeline as to the disintegration of radioactive isotopes and other things. And the more this happens, the worse it is, because the simple reason you can't live on the surface. If you have that barrier, 10 centimeters of water, believe it or not, is a gamma ray shield. And I don't see anybody else talking about having a solution as to how the heck to stop this and keep you alive. What I'm trying to do is keep you alive. If you don't want to live, don't help me. If you don't want a future for your children, don't help me. If you want them to live, and I have to figure out a way to put food on the table after this clown gets rid of destroying all the animals and everything else that you eat. And I want to make it so it's illegal for Monsanto and the rest of the screwballs to do what they're doing, is to poisoning us and the water supply, which, notice, if he's such a great guy, why did he take the ban off of the EPA prosecuting anybody when we're in this segment of time that he created, meaning Trump, and stopped measuring the poisons in the environment? which also includes water. So now we have things that go in the water, we don't even know what's going on anymore. And you can't even prosecute somebody for putting them in here because of this bozo.
So is Trump the Antichrist of the Book of Revelation?
I don't touch that at all, because the simple reason, I think most of it is stuff that the Babylonians, Anunnaki, it's their garbage that they're trying to get you to believe when it has nothing to do with the reality of the situation, when you're the one that, look, it's problem creation solution. So they got everybody believing something that isn't true, but they're the ones that are creating the problem. They put out a playbook for doing this, and they got everybody worshiping the situation. If you actually look up who Jesus Christ was, okay, it's in Wikipedia. Guess who? I can't think of the guy's name, but it turns out he was a Roman soldier. He was working for Constantine, and Constantine is the one that you could actually arguably indicate that state rather cogently that he was the first pope. And what they did is the ones that were running the thing, which you can find some literature on my site, was the Pezos family. And they were the gray popes going all the way back. And then you have the black pope, which is the Jesuit, and then you got the white pope. And if you look at it, the whole
Okay, so by
by the
your
way, they went
figuring,
over to Allah.
by your figuring, who was Jesus Christ? Just say it succinctly.
He was a Roman soldier that answered to Constantine. And I'm sorry, I believe it was Constantine. I can't remember for sure.
So
I have to go back and look. It's on Wikipedia.
So he was not a carpenter.
He was a soldier. As a matter of fact, they found out where his body was buried, by the way. And I have to tell you something. You got to hand it to Constantine. Anybody who wanted to argue with him, he decimated the boys, the troops.
Oh, okay. What about the film that reportedly DARPA secret time travel technology made, where they went back to the crucifixion and they videotaped the crucifixion? It's a classified videotape, but a colleague of mine who's a chrononaut, Andrew D. Bashago, who's also an attorney, member of the Bar of Washington State, says that he saw it. He's actually seen a videotape of the crucifixion of Christ.
I've had Preston Nichols say the same thing, except the other way around. I swear to God, I'm not being funny with you.
What did Preston Nichols say?
I knew him personally, by the way. Preston Nichols said that they went back and it was nothing. I've heard it both ways. Okay, I'd never heard your side of it before.
But
I swear to God, I'm not kidding you.
And did Preston Nichols see the video?
I don't know the answer to the question. I don't make things up because I don't know.
My witness, who I spoke to day before yesterday, said, and he saw my book Exopolitics in 1971 when it wasn't published until 2005, because he was a member of the secret time travel program, said that he was admitted to a screening of this top secret film, which was created using time travel technology going back to the crucifixion. And it has been widely viewed by many in the the top secret community of the national security state that has access to it.
Well, my understanding is, okay, with what Wikipedia has, which I read, is that the JC is the soldier is referenced in the Talmud as being the JC. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not claiming I know the answer to your question.
Wikipedia took my entry out because I quote, wasn't significant. So I have no belief in Wikipedia, and that was a political decision of theirs. It was not objective.
I believe that too.
Yeah. So I think Wikipedia is just part of the matrix.
I don't know the answer to the question, but I got to tell you something.
I think Wikipedia is they're Wikidpedia.
Well,
Wikipedia should be called Wikidpedia.
I don't know, but I can say this. I know there was, the Matrix that was, the original Matrix, this is a weird one. Okay, the original matrix, the other side of the situation put an overlay over it. In other
Okay.
words, the dark side put an overlay over it. The ones that created this mess, or, well, okay, it goes in current time, relative current time, are the Druids. And if you actually, the problem I have with the Hebrews, okay, they talk about the raising the dead and all of that, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem, here's the problem. They're lying. And you know why I know? It was done by the Druids. The spell is a Druid spell. And here's the best part. It's in Gaelic. And the stuff that they're talking about, most of it is in Sanskrit. It was never in Hebrew, and it's never in the derivative Phoenician or any of their pre-existing, what do you call it, languages. They stole the religion. They twisted it. They twisted it. As a matter of fact, you know the Essenes? Okay, JC's supposed to be an Essean, right? Do you know what Essean means? Do you know what the word means? Alfred, do you know what it means? Hello? It means bee king. Do you know who were the ones that made the bees? They were the Druids. The Masons admit it. Did you know that? Hello? Is this thing gone? Can you hear me?
Look, Richard, you have a mode in which you ask rhetorical questions. We're giving you extra time. I
Okay, fine.
suggest that you get to the point.
Okay,
Get to your point.
the root of the problem is this. The original people on this world, the original ones with the basis of the whole thing of humanity are the Druids. And a lot of people know it, but nobody wants to talk about it because it's unpopular, because then you have to challenge the queen and she does bad things. The Hebrews lied. They lied. They're the invaders. It's like I told you, they're the ones that worship the Black Star. So as long as you're following them, you're always going to have a problem because it doesn't work. And it goes all the way back, it doesn't work. And that brings you back to, Tiamat and the rest of it, the kids killing mom and dad. And that's who's in power now. Okay, if you look at what the Catholic Church has done, they're saying that Jesus isn't coming back, and they got a telescope by the name of Lucifer. This is indicative. And that's Rome. And part of the reason is because if you look at who these people are, which I found out, all right, under Louis XI, he decides to attack into Switzerland, and Switzerland is the what do you call it? Caesar's Northern Legions, and before that, they're the city of Ur, and the city of Ur is the Babylonians, and the Babylonians go back to the Phoenicians and the rest of it, which brings you back to the Chinese and all that, which aren't the original people, but they're the kids that come in with the Mahabharata and all the rest of the stuff from off-world, which brings you back to, what do you call it, Anu and the rest of the crew. That's the problem. You want to go with the guys that killed mom and dad, that's cool. I can't help you. But you're always going to be in trouble. Because then what it is they claim that they own you because they created you. And that's how they're going to come in here and they're going to cull you. Because as soon as you sign that paper, and as long as you go along with that, they are going to kill you and they're going to eat you and they're going to do bad things to your children because they're going to make the adrenochrome. And that gives them the authority to do it. And that's why I have to try to stop it. And that's why the Catholic Church and Christianity exists. That's why they did it. And the Other side of that is they stole the religion from the Druids, and the ones that came up with the whole bee thing are the Druids. And the Essenes, which are the guys that died at Masada, were never Hebrews. They let different people come in, but you have to understand, and they trained them, but they never dreamed they were going to steal anything. They were trusting. They made a mistake. Kind of like I've made mistakes with some of the people in government because I thought they were honest and they weren't. But then I found out why. It's hard to tell somebody when they're invested over multiple generations in believing something that the thing isn't true. And people who are in the legal field to get anywhere basically have to become Masons. In this country, when this country was founded, the guys that were the ones that were allowed to be in charge in battle were the Masons. I actually talk about it in the book, under 1.3%, someplace a little bit above 1.2% of the people who voted were only Masons to put Washington into power. And Washington went against the Northwest Ordinance, and his original battle flag were 6 fleur-de-lis in gold, fleur-de-lis rather, in gold on a blue field, which has disappeared from the net as history is rewritten again. And that is the symbol of the royalty of Europe, which was never royal. And that's the problem, because they came in here, and the Swiss that I indicated before were also called the Switzers. And they were, They were soldiers of fortune. And the conquering ones that came in and killed all the people who were the royals, they were the ones that killed them. And when they did that, that's why I had to become a recurrence, and I couldn't have a direct lineage, because it had to come together a certain way with just the right families, with the right blood, or otherwise I couldn't exist. So technically, the genetics right now is so screwed up from what was. The system is marginal. And if I die and there's no replacement, then it's really over, and then we all lose. And that's what they want. So what it is this clause in there that basically says last man standing, and I'm the last man standing that I know of. And I'm the only one that was recognized in the off-world courts because of it, the way it is. And that's why I was given the toys that I was. And nobody wanted me in here because they wanted it to proceed, because they've had 65 billion years of fun. So they've made my life freaking holy rolling horrors of hell. And I came in anyways, and everybody told me don't do it. And nobody else wanted it. But something had to be done, because it can't be allowed to continue. And that's the way it really is. So if nobody wants to help and that's the way it is, then, I might as well check out, because you'll get what you want, but your children and everything is going to be dead, and you'll be begging to go into the FEMA camps for the simple reason you're not going to be able to breathe the methane. And that's the way it is. Then I can't help anybody anymore. Then I'm sorry, but it is what it is. So the Catholic Church will have done its job, and they've played this card. This is like a playbook. The funny thing of it is, all the other worlds, I'm not sure what happens to them, because the deal I had to take, which I didn't want, but I had to take it to get to you. And everybody told me, don't do it. Actually, what they really told me is you aren't worth it, because I'll tell you what the Anunnaki tell me, and it's not good. They don't want to know, they're too stupid. They deserve what they get. And I said, no, everybody has the right to become. It's like even the little dog, right? Or whatever, right? The different animals and the rest of it, they don't deserve this. They didn't do anything wrong. The people don't deserve this. They didn't do anything wrong, really. Everybody trusts the people above them are okay and they mean them well.
One. Richard, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, you have a very special vision now, and you've been gifted, and you're in a special position. So, for the next 15 or 20 minutes, just give us this vision of what you'd like to do for your fellow human community and for the planet.
I want to save as many people as I possibly can from what the heck these idiots are doing.
Yeah,
That's basically
and speak as loudly as you can. And
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want to save as many people as I possibly can. I don't think it's possible to save everybody, but the thing is, we have to try. I don't want to see anybody go to FEMA. I don't like seeing people get killed or hurt or anything of that nature. All right. I know they want the planet. I know they want to turn it into a Titan type of world with methane and the rest of it. That's what they want. One of the people I know, one of them that's related to the stewards, actually, according to them, got fitted with a device of some sort that they can somehow convert methane to oxygen until they can get her into another body. And she's somewhat highly priced, which is kind of crazy, but it's actually real, apparently. And I've had other people tell me it's, yeah, which I'm not happy about, but I don't have control of them. So if I can get the word out, if we can do something to stop the change of the axis, I believe it'll revert. I believe it's possible to put back up the firmament, which gets rid of a number of other problems, okay, as to what I was talking about, because we are going to be bombarded with gamma rays. Actually, there's a group out there that measures these things. I can't think of it, space something or other. Anyways, and it's been going up and up and up and up all the time. There have actually been experiments that this can actually affect people biologically, where they revert to prior states regarding baby. And it, okay, they did something with a salmon and the thing got a hook at the end of its nose and became a prehistoric something. And they did the same thing with wheat, and the wheat reverted to a prior version of itself. So this stuff is actually real. It's crazy, but it's real. And I could give you more examples, but whatever. All of this stuff can be taken care of, but you have to have teams. No one person can do it all themselves, and you have to have resources to do it. That's why we have to bring the country back online as quickly as possible. So that, and you have to, keep from using things that won't work. We can only have things that work because there's not enough resources, and after this is even worse. The teams have to be localized to specific locations. They need to be as far away from the water as possible because they know in the history of TV as to what's been put forward to the people, because people forget, that there's a high probability in these situations that the table which is like a pedestal table in Hawaii, will fall over sideways under with Pele going off under certain conditions like what we have here. They know that there's a tsunami over at Montserrat could happen very easily. It's expected. They could actually do things to stop it, or at least hold it back for a time, but they don't do that. Okay. And what happens is water gets down in the cracks into the magma or whatever, down deep enough, and you got a problem. And sooner or later it'll go, fall sideways, as to like an underwater earthquake, and because it's liquid, it gets transmitted right across the ocean bed and the rest of it. It's over. And they know this can take it off the East Coast, is to at least parts of it. And part of the response to this has been that they don't let people build in certain areas. Cape Cod is part of it, and they know the storms are going to increase because, like I said in the last presentation before this, every 1.5 degree rise is a 10x rise in the storm activity and strength energy, if you will. So the solution is we have to address these things. And the people who are in charge, one of the things I've found in dealing with lawyers expect that people, they can afford to pay people to get an answer for something. And the problem is you get the answer you pay for. Kind of like the guy that did the thing with the dogs with the sugar, saying that sugar was okay for dogs and they could live on it, and all the dogs died, of course. It didn't work. But you can get somebody to say almost anything, and that's the way our world works. So what I'm saying to you is we need a group of people in different genres, okay, that can put these things together. I can do this stuff, and I got a history of doing it, but no one person can do it all themselves. I need to be able to build a device that can instantaneously drill a hole, which can be done with gamma and other things. It can be done with, NASA came up with a thing for digging holes to make buildings on the moon, etc., where they can do it pretty quick, even through rock with carbide, using carbide bits. And we need to be able to house a lot of people very fast. And what I do is I try to design for what I call popcorn. Okay, using standardized sizing so that you don't have to cut. In other words, time and materials all minimized, which is actually humorous when they talk about social distancing in manufacturing, because that's the exact opposite of, time and materials and time studies as to manufacturing it. You see the humor of it. It doesn't work. So if we can we have to be able to build buildings and an infrastructure in months, which I believe it can be done under certain circumstances. One of the things I did is I looked at the way the Ho Chi Minh Trail was built and why they were able to do it as quickly as they did. They looked for divots in the ground, is what they did. And then they built into the divots and then covered it over. Using these technologies, we can do something, we can save more people than we would otherwise. We have to look at everything, because life is too precious not to. And we have to be able to let everything become, because everything has a right to do that. That's why you were created, all of us. If what I said about the pyramids, that can take care of a number of problems. The asteroids, the coronal mass ejections. These things are real. Like I said yesterday about the sun with the CME that got averted by bringing in world help. We need to be able to handle these things ourselves. That's why the other side, the Arabs, when they first came in here, Muslims, whatever you want to call them, worshippers of Baal, Sin, whatever, that group, they went after the pyramid because the pyramid was the shield to the planet with the water, and it didn't have to have any electromagnetics besides the water. And in other words, it was a naturalistic way of doing it. And if you look at it, people, basically what they did is they built an ocean in the sky. That's what it was. But nobody could figure out how they could do it. Like I said, Schomburger figured it out, but nobody understood why they would do it. And I figured it out looking at what nobody could figure out. So I need teams to be able to refurbish that thing. Can't think of his name. There's a geopolymer guy who actually looked at it, and he found out there was poured. So the situation isn't hopeless. The situation is the people need to be told what's going on and what is necessary. And we need everybody working. We don't need people not working. We have to have an infrastructure to deal with this. But when you look at, if you're going to be clouding over the sun with the chemtrails, then you don't want to have solar for the simple reason you're not going to have anything coming through as long as they continue with chemtrails. And one of the things I was going to tell you, there is a way to deal with the chemtrails. I want to tell 3 stories because I want to empower people as well, although it's kind of dangerous. They're very short stories. The first one is during Auschwitz, there was a flight of planes. There's a book, a friend of mine knew of it too. And the planes were Luftwaffe, and they went overhead. And the people in the camp started yelling, they want the planes to hit the ground, and they did. And they killed everybody that witnessed it, and it was in a book. Then when Captain Bly was put in a boat on off of Pitcairn Island, and he had to make his way back to the nearest port, they only had 1 cask of water. So he told the crew at one point, imagine that everything about so many feet away from the boat was all fresh water. And it worked, and they all lived, except for the ones that had already passed by drinking salt water. And the third one was coast to coast. Art Bell once did a show, and what he said was, there was somebody called in, there was some town that didn't have water to raise their crops for an extended period of time. I think it was something like 10, 12 years, something like that. And what happened was, he asked the people who were listening to think of the town and think of it raining over the town. Well, it worked, except there was a problem with the volume control. They got rain. They got more rain than they could handle. But it did rain. So they did this a number of times, and every time it worked. So the power of the human soul, in terms of what we're talking about, is amazing. And the power to handle the chemtrails and the jets that are flying out of wherever they fly out of by using such a technique, we may be able to get that out of our atmosphere without even asking for anybody off world to do anything for us. So I'm asking for a group to help focus on those kind of things, to obviate them, and also same thing with asteroids until we can get other things in place. But I want teams of people to do this because I believe in humanity. And the reason why I believe in humanity, I read an article, and I wrote an article based on this article recently. There was a study done on babies. They were about 2 to 3 years old. And they wanted to know if they were altruistic. The question has always been, is it man or is it the society? Is man basically good or is man basically bad? So an adult made like he was hungry in front of the baby, the 2 to 3 year old. And the answer was that the baby offered the adult its food even though it was hungry, which proved that the child by itself was actually altruistic. So it isn't man that is the problem, it's the society that's engendered by these creatures that have done what they've done to man. Man is good. So let us be good and let the light outshine the dark. I need your help to make that dream more of a reality for the children and all the rest of us. And that's what I want. And that's why I do what I do. So please help me help you. I think I said what I had to say. I hope I made sense.
Well, those are really heartfelt and clear words, and we'll put those with your website, Richard, and with your email address and with your phone number, so that people who are drawn to your message
Do you
can
understand? I'm sorry.
yes, clearly understood. You are transmitting very strong messages and pictures and visions. And I
That's
want
what
to thank you for joining us today. And
Albert,
we look forward to your joining us in the future. So
I'm
thank you.
sorry. Thank you, Albert. You understand why I need to have the people, I have to try to get them out of harm's way.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you very much then.
Thank you, Albert.